war continues. Welcome back to Garrett Grigsby's War in the East 2. It's turn 9, August 17th, 1941. As is par for the course, German forces continue pushing eastward into Russia. With the mixed Axis forces reaching the two key cities along the Dnieper, combat in the southern area continues to be light, with most of the battles ending up being routes for the Russian forces. There is a small town called Galashino on the northern side of the Dnieper River. Here, an SS Motorized Brigade, part of the 30th Corps, attacks the 147th Rifle Division. Losses are low, 250 Germans and 5 guns to 235 Russians and also 5 guns, but it does result in defensive forces holding. As the encirclement around the Russian forces east of Kiev continues to be cleaned up, the majority of the German forces in the area just continue to chase the Russian divisions retreating. The main battle of the turn happens in the central front, with the key city of Smolensk finally being conquered by the Germans. While I am happy that it does take till turn 9 for him to take the city, it is slightly frustrating with the results of the battle. 5-1 odds is understandable. Him bringing his heavy howitzer battalions to bear all makes it very reasonable why the town ended up in German hands at the end of this week. What I do not get is my horrendous die roll of 587 to 32, and thus I'm only able to kill 147 Germans and 3 guns. I was hoping for a little bit more. Didn't get it. What I did get is the beginning of his offensive to sever my Leningrad and northwestern fronts apart from each other. This is putting the main rail line between Leningrad and Moscow at risk, and if I do continue to control it by September 1st, I'll be surprised. It's also in the north here where the air war went against me. A lot of fighters and bombers were lost in the close air support missions. Didn't fully expect him to focus so much energy on his end. It's kind of sporadic how he uses his air force, so it's hard for me to predict on a turn-by-turn basis. If he does ground them to preserve his fuel, I can't really take advantage of that because he destroyed so much in this area that I'm pretty much forced to go back into grounding my air force as well. But the rest of his ground forces continue to swing westward along the Baltic Sea. I do hold there. Tallinn, he still has yet to begin his assault. I'm curious whether or not he's going to shift those howitzers or some form of artillery. I did build a fortification or city fort there, so maybe that makes a little bit of a difficulty. He did leave my infantry division that's behind his lines near Riga, north of Riga, alone. So I get to continue to move south with that to try to harass his ability to repair the rail lines. Other than that, though, this is the situation I'm facing at the beginning of my turn. It's not horrible. Did bring in some reinforcements in the Leningrad area, and also a lot of cavalry I brought down near west of Stalino. So as the various militia divisions continue to dig in around the city of Moscow to try to prevent the city's capture, to the south, several generals try to plan on their localized area. The Coastal Army Group is trying to figure out how to prevent the Crimea region from falling, a task that I don't really think they can succeed in. Problems in the center. If that unit falls, my level 3 forts are proved to be useless. So this will probably be abandoned next week. The actual Southern Army Group's trying to figure out how to withdraw around Stalino in any way that can slow down the Germans. So I'm going to give them about 8 or 9 hexes at various points along the front and see what they do with that. And all I really have in the area to use as any form of a line is these cavalry units, which I'm going to be honest, I don't really like. But nonetheless, they're here, so I'm going to have to get them in the various command structure and figure out what to do as this progresses. Moving up the front, most of the units continue to approach this from the same direction. Retreat of about 8 hexes is applied to the cities of Kharkov, Orel, and Kursk. This will not help me next turn. What I'm trying to do is just end the bleeding of hundreds of thousands of troops getting cut off every single week. So hopefully as we reach September, I'll be in a better position to formulate some form of a defense. But at least in this area, I do have several new rifle divisions to use. So, we'll see what they can do. As I move up to the city of Orel, things get a little trickier. With zone of control, I was able to cut off one of his motorized divisions. Hasn't done much in the past. So I just proceed with trying to find some form of adequate defense. Which here as well is also a pretty thin line. But these are the two new rifle divisions that come automatically in that industrial city in the rear, very, very far distant north of Russia. So yeah, I railed them here last turn, but they'll join the thin line. I pretty much operate the same way along the rest of the front. I don't give up as much terrain because I don't really need to. I'm in pretty good position, even in the Smolensk area. It's as I reach Leningrad the things become somewhat complicated. I don't want to give up fighting in these like heavy woods and whatnot. So I do abandon another fortified region, move my units around a little bit, but and somewhat waiting to see how much combat power he has left. I'm assuming it's a lot though. But the end of the turn does look like this. So even though I do pull back in a lot of areas, I'm actually, once again, relatively happy with where I'm sitting. Very curious to see what I'm able to do with the single rifle unit that's just hanging out, moving down towards Riga. Also curious with Tallinn. I don't know whether or not he has enough there to conquer the city with what I've done with it. But I could be completely wrong there. I might get my turn back and it's totally gone. Either way though, I'm anxious to get it. So I'm gonna send the file over to my opponent and wait patiently for it to return to me.